So as many of you probably know, the Wisconsin Supreme Court election is next Tuesday, and well, this is the most important race in 2025. Yes, more critical than New Jersey, more critical than Virginia, more critical than any of these other states. And that's because whoever wins this race next Tuesday will take control over the Supreme Court. Yeah, this decides the majority. We're not at a 6-1 Democrat majority. No. Right now it's 4-3 Democrat. And if Republicans win, they will retake the Supreme Court, which that's a big deal, especially in a swing state like Wisconsin. We're not talking about Iowa, Ohio, Indiana. No, we're talking about a state that in 2024 voted for Trump by just under 1 point. That's why this race is important, much more critical than New Jersey, because if we lose New Jersey in 2025, okay, whatever. That's still a Democrat state. Same thing with Virginia. But Wisconsin is a swing state. So it's a state that you have to pay attention to. Because guess what? If Republicans lose Wisconsin next Tuesday, yeah, it may not directly impact 2026 or 2028, but in the long term, that might be bad news for the GOP. Because right now it's 4-3 Democrat. All right, this majority is already insane. But Susan Crawford, the Democrat candidate, is absolutely crazy. She's a Madison radical, and she has already said, yeah, if I win, I'm going to gerrymander the map in Wisconsin. I'm not even exaggerating. That's what she said. And in fact, Democrats are banking on that.
And have fair lines. The only way for that to be even a significant possibility is if you have an enlightened Supreme Court. And so, I think that's an incredibly important race.
Democrats are saying, vote for Susan Crawford because she's going to rig the maps in Wisconsin. That's not a joke. And with our small House majority, that could be the difference in 2026 between Republicans barely keeping the House or Democrats flipping it. Because there's 2 House seats that theoretically Susan Crawford could make into Democrat seats. So yeah, that alone should make people realize, oh crap, we gotta vote Republican now. We have to vote for Brad Schimmel. But just in general, Crawford is an awful judge. She has a radical history. She should be nowhere near the Supreme Court.
On these ads we're seeing, you referenced one. In 2020, you did sentence a child sex offender to 4 years in prison after prosecutors requested 10. Do you regret that sentence?
Yes, I don't regret that sentence.
Now, a lot of people are dooming about the race. Like, you would think on paper this should be a gimme, because Brad Schimmel, he's a former attorney general. He was fairly popular, and in 2018, he would have won in a blue wave had it not been for a third party. But you look at the polling right now, and it's not that good for Brad Schimmel. Listen, I said early on back in February and stuff that I thought Brad Schimmel was in a good position because he had more name recognition, he was more popular. But in recent weeks, we've been seeing more and more polling that indicates, yeah, Brad Schimmel's in a very bad situation, and a lot of people are claiming that there's no pathway for Schimmel right now. He's going to get crushed. And even a couple days ago, I was saying that, Brad Schimmel's in a really bad situation, and I'm having my doubts. But I still believe there is a pathway for Schimmel. Now, I think Crawford right now is a favorite. I'm not going to give a final prediction right now, but I think Crawford, as of now, is the favorite. But at the same time, Brad Schimmel's not out of this race. It's not like he's down by 30 points and there's no way he can win. No, he actually has a fairly straightforward pathway to victory. And it all comes down to turnout. This is the X factor for this race. We don't know what the final turnout will be. And that's critical because in the year 2025, the Republican Party benefits from high turnout. And I know for decades, it was the opposite. Like for 20, 30 years, Democrats were banking on high turnout every single year. While Republicans, they were begging for record low turnout. They were saying, oh God, please no, we need 5% turnout to win by a point. After that, we get killed. That was the Republican Party before Trump. And that changed. In 2024, it clearly changed. I mean, 2024 is a very high turnout election, and Trump won the popular vote, won all the swing states, and he ran it up in places like New Jersey, Virginia, New Mexico, these fairly Democrat states. Even Illinois was fairly close. So the race comes down to turnout. And I know it's kind of a generic talking point, but that's the reality of it. If there's high turnout the next couple of days, Brad Schimmel has a pathway to victory. He can absolutely win. And in 2023, the Supreme Court race that we lost by a lot, turnout was pretty bad. In that election, roughly 1.8 million people voted, and Dan Kelly got absolutely crushed. Now, was it a higher turnout compared to prior elections for the Supreme Court? Yeah. But compared to just 2024 in Wisconsin, which I know 2024 is after, but you get the point that the turnout in Wisconsin for the Supreme Court race wasn't that good. In 2024, roughly 3.2 million voters voted, and only 1.8 million voted in 2023. And a lot of those people that didn't vote, those were Trump voters. These were people that voted for Trump in 2020, or they might have voted for Biden back in 2020, but then in 24 flipped to Trump. That's who these missing voters were. There's been plenty of studies conducted, and yeah, in 2022, 2023, the people that didn't vote in these races were Republicans. These low propensity Trump voters that never show up. They vote maybe once a year, if that. They may not vote for years. They only vote when Trump's on the ballot. That's the Republican coalition. That's who these people were that didn't vote back in 23, in 22. But that might be changing, as in the last couple of days, Republicans have gotten excellent news for turnout. Now, I'm not going to claim that this means that, oh yeah, Republicans are for sure going to win Wisconsin. But ever since Trump endorsed Brad Schimmel a couple days ago, we've noticed a spike in turnout across the board. Just look at this right here. This is the net votes cast of early in-person voting versus 2023. And look at the areas that have the biggest surge in turnout. Republican areas. These counties that are like Waukesha, Ozaukee, Washington, these super Republican areas, they're voting. And they're voting at way higher rates compared to Democrat areas like Madison, like Milwaukee. This graph alone should give people some kind of confidence that, hey, maybe Brad Schimmel could win. But it continues. Look at this. Turning Point Action a couple days ago, they claimed that they're modeled Republicans, which means people that they think are Republican voters versus people they think are Democrats, they believe that Republicans are winning by 39,000 votes. And just today, that increased to like 60,000. Now, does that mean that Brad Schimmel's up by 60,000 votes? No. But it does demonstrate that when more people vote, it doesn't matter what state it is. It could be Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, California, all these states. The more people that vote, the more likely it is these are Republicans. And you could keep going. Look at this. These are the absentee ballot returns 5 days out from Election Day. And in 2023, again, Dan Kelly lost by 203,000 votes. As of now, ballots return has increased by 53%. In other words, by 165,000 votes. That means nearly the entire margin of victory for Democrats in 2023 has been made up in early voting. Does that mean Kelly's going to win? Or I should say Schimmel? No. But it does indicate that, hey, wait a minute, the turnout is way higher. It looks like these are Republican voters. I mean, guys, the biggest increases are coming from Waukesha, Kenosha, Racine, Washington. You know, these very Republican parts of Wisconsin. Like, yeah, Waukesha, for example. This is the most Republican part of the state, and they're voting. They're voting at insane rates. That's why I'm saying that, hey, maybe this race is winnable. I mean, if early voting has increased this much, I mean, the margin of victory is gone. Well, that could be the difference between a Schimmel victory or a Crawford victory. Because you know damn well that these people, more than likely, they're Republicans. They lean more to the right, and we're seeing it based off of county data. The biggest percentage increases are coming in Republican areas, and the modeled voters are looking way more conservative than they did back in 2023. Again, this doesn't mean that I think that Crawford's going to lose or whatever. But I do believe that at the bare minimum, this race is a lot closer than some people are saying. Like, the polls right now are showing Crawford losing by like 8 to 10 points or whatever, which it's possible. I'm not denying that. But the early voting looks so good for the Republican Party. The turnout just looks amazing. These are a lot of people that didn't vote in 23, and we know these people are more Republican because in 23, the people that didn't vote were Republican voters, people that voted for Trump. Even in 2024, we saw the same trend. Republicans had a surge in early voting, and Democrats were claiming, no, these are totally Democrat voters. And guess what happened? Republicans won easily. These new voters tend to be more Republican. Now, it is a little bit different because this is an off-year election. This is without Trump on the ballot. But it does seem like Republicans in the last couple of days, they're getting their people out to vote. And by wide margins. And Trump backing Schimmel could be the difference between us losing by a lot to maybe we lose by a couple points, but not by 15 points or whatever. Or it may be just enough for where Brad Schimmel could barely win. I know the polling isn't looking good, but guys, Wisconsin polling is awful. How many times am I going to talk about this? Wisconsin polling for years has sucked. Does that mean they're going to be off by 10, 15 points? I'm not saying that. It's entirely possible that they could be right. But Wisconsin polling for years has been awful. And with a surge in turnout, maybe these polls are just all wrong, which is, again, I know that sounds kind of crazy, but turnout is looking way higher than it did back in 2023. In fact, some people are saying that there could be 400 to 500,000 more voters in 2025. And if that's the case, the vast majority of those voters, they're going to vote for Schimmel. These new voters that didn't vote in 23 or whatever, they're Republicans. These are Trump voters. And it may even go higher because Trump is now doing a bunch of tele-rallies for Brad Schimmel. Now, we got to see what happens in the next couple of days. Anything could theoretically happen. Maybe Republicans lose by 10 points. I'm not denying that as a legitimate possibility. But this race is so bizarre because you look at the turnout numbers right now. Yeah, a couple weeks ago, they weren't that good. But in recent days, it looks a lot better across the board. It just looks way better than it did in 2023. Again, this number could be wrong. I'm not saying for sure this means Schimmel's up by 39,000 votes. It just means that, yeah, Republicans are getting voters out to vote. And in the last couple of days, especially the last 2 days, they have surged in turnout. And just a day ago, they had their best day of early voting for this entire cycle. 42,000 people voted yesterday in person. And there's a chance those people were Republicans. So, again, no one should get cocky. No one should say this race is completely over. Brad Schimmel still has a pathway. It just all comes down to turnout. Do Trump voters get out and vote for someone that, just a couple weeks ago wasn't supported by Trump, but now is? And Trump's not on the ballot, which could be a big concern because these people don't usually vote unless Trump is on the ballot or they have a reason to vote. And hopefully they realize, oh yeah, if we lose, Democrats take over the Supreme Court yet again with an even more radical judge, and things could get awful in the state. Now, listen, everyone's got to get out and vote. Everyone's got to tell people in Wisconsin to vote. If you know somebody in Wisconsin, text them, call them, whatever, and tell them there's an upcoming election next Tuesday. Vote Brad Schimmel. If you want Trump to be successful, vote Brad Schimmel, because those 2 House seats in Wisconsin, which could be gone next year, they could be the difference between a Republican majority in 2026 or a Democrat majority. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.